Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're looking at the ASIair PLUS, the features and operation from the point of view of a non-technical user. Full disclosure, I received this product as part of the ZWO Experience Officer program, which meant I got an early release of the unit and was given a $100 discount. Thank you to ZWO for this unique opportunity. However, there is no expectation other than to provide my honest opinion and feedback. My name is Adrian, and you're watching Ogopogo Astro. Let's dive right in. The first step is to turn on the unit and connect to its app. The Plus has two connection methods. You can use Wi-Fi or Ethernet. The Wi-Fi itself also has two transmission modes. Station mode, where you can connect the ASIair to your home network or to its own hotspot using 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz signals. The Wi-Fi signal strength has greatly improved. I have really strong signals throughout the house. Not unexpectedly, the signal does get weaker as you get further away, but I definitely see a substantial improvement in the range from the Pro. Early on, I did have some random disconnection issues, but when I switched from my Apple phone to my Android tablet, the app became more stable. ZWO has received multiple reports of this issue and has told the Experience Officer community that they're looking into the problem. After the introduction screen, you'll be given a summary of what is connected to the ASIair and the date, time, location. With my setup today, I have a color camera, and as such, I did not need to connect an electronic filter wheel. In the main screen, you have the image area, and at the top, you have the menu options. You will notice on the left and right some additional features. This screen is not unlike what you would see in the Pro. Let's jump over to the camera setting. So you can turn your camera on and off with the top toggle switch. This will allow you to switch between connected cameras using the drop-down menu. If the focal length is known, you should enter it here, or use 0 and ASIair will figure it out for you. I really did appreciate this feature at first when I was learning astrophotography, as it was one less thing that I had to remember. The next section, you can set your gain. As you can see, you have three options, and I had my camera set up at Unity Gain, which is the medium setting. You can use the slider to have more granular control. One setting that's missing was camera offset. The Plus and the Pro do not allow you to customize the camera offsets. I have turned on cooling at this point, and you can see I've selected negative 10 degrees. You can choose the presets or use the slider to customize. On particular warm summer nights, I would often use the slider to slowly bring my sensor temperature down to my chosen temperature. As a budding astrophotographer, I appreciated the simplicity that these choices provided, but now that I like to tinker a little bit more, I wish the app would have a timer delay to allow for more gradual cooling process. You can also customize file names by going to the Customize File Names area and toggling on and off the predefined options. Advanced settings allow you to switch some settings on and off, but honestly, I've left these at default and I have not really played with these settings yet. Now I'm in the guide scope area. Again, I can toggle the camera on and off and use the drop-down menu to select connected cameras. The guide scope focal length is needed to guide correctly. I can adjust the gain setting here also. The Plus uses a similar approach as PHD2, but with limited functionality. This was a very difficult area for me to understand at first. Calibration steps, max deck, and RA duration. And I think that this functionality can be improved to be more user-friendly to the beginning astrophotographer. I would like to see the ASIair calculate these settings for you, or at least recommend settings based on your camera and scope. That said, there's a terrific blog from East Wing Astrophotography that will help you grasp these settings. I'll post a link in the description below. You will notice I have the auto restore calibration turned off. This is because I tear down and set up my rig every night when imaging, so I cannot use the previous calibrations to start my guiding. Let's go into this guide stability settings. This basically tells the ASIair what guiding thresholds to meet before it takes an image. My settings are such that the guiding must be under 2 arc seconds for 5 seconds before starting the next image. These settings are usually paired with dithering, which is the section I'm in now. Here I'm setting how many pixels to randomly shift and how many images to take between the dithering routine is initiated. For those of you that have a sky tracker, you can restrict dithering to the RA axis only. For those of you that are wondering if this is necessary, yes, I have found dithering has improved my image quality by addressing noise issues in the images while stacking. That said, you don't necessarily have to dither every image, as this costs you precious time, and the benefits can still be obtained when dithering on every 3 to 5 frames. The time cost that's incurred is because your system has to wait for the guiding to settle before taking the next image, thereby losing image subs over the course of the night. Now I'm jumping to the telescope settings. I have a Skywatcher EQ6R Pro, so I selected the EQ mod mount in the dropdown and toggled the telescope on. Because I'm using a USB connection, I've selected the baud rate of 115,200. If you use an EQ mod cable, I believe the baud rate should be 9600. At this time, I sync my mount to my location through my tablet to confirm the app knows where the mount is located. Some things that threw me off when I first started using the Plus and the Pro was the time. I noticed it was an hour different than the actual time. The app has language as to what you need to do and what to expect. That being said, if you're imaging all night and you're using Meridian flip functionality, you will want to make sure that the date and time is consistent with the description that's provided. I'm now in the Meridian flip settings. The Meridian is the prime time to image, as the object is in the highest location in the sky. So you want to make sure that you set up the times in such a way that you maximize your imaging time while still successfully completing the Meridian flip. The settings that I have on screen work well for me. This is one of the real benefits of the ASIair. I find this process to be very reliable. I have my settings to recalibrate the guiding after the flip, and later you'll see I do an autofocus routine after also. That said, I do still set an alarm to ensure that the flip has been completed. Other settings also allow you to auto center as part of plate solving routines, set the guide rates, and turn tracking on and off. When you turn tracking on, this will give you other options to track stars, the sun, or the moon. Finally, you have the option to return the mount to the home position when you finish imaging, or when you want to reset a process like polar alignment. We have jumped into the filter wheel settings. Since I do not have a filter wheel connected, I'll leave this for another video. Now we're in the focus settings. I jump directly into the autofocus area, and I have turned on autofocus to run for every condition listed. I'm probably a bit overboard here. My thought here is you need to balance that you have pinpoint stars with the lost imaging time to run an autofocus routine. Things that you want to set up for your focuser are the parameters. The settings I have here work for my RedCap 51 and have generated great results using the autofocuser routine. That said, some things I found out the hard way. If you notice a flat line during the start of your autofocus routine, that is backlash. Add an amount to your backlash area until you eliminate that flat line. If your step size is too small, then the autofocuser cannot recognize the changes in the stars and a nice deep curve will not be established. You want to see a U-shaped curve during the autofocus routine. This is another area I really appreciated the approach taken by the ASIair app. And I find once you have the parameters set right, the app just works. One of the biggest differences between the Plus and the Pro is the storage capabilities. The Pro has an SD card and an external flash drive to house your operating system and store your images. Now with the Plus, you have onboard storage, which is much faster. The operating system is stored on an eMMC chip and can be reset in the app directly if there is a corruption issue. So no longer do you need to create a backup, save it on the computer, and reload it onto an SD card if it's corrupted. Like the Pro, the Plus, you can save images directly to a USB drive or an SD card. But with the Plus, you have the added feature of saving the images directly into the internal memory, which has 20 gigabytes of storage. To transfer those images when using internal memory, you can use a USB drive, an SD card, or finally connect the Plus directly to your computer using the USB-C port and perform a direct file transfer. This additional capabilities is terrific. So now that we've gone through some of the settings, let's dive into my imaging routine. I start by taking a 3-second preview, and I'm simply checking that I'm roughly pointed in the direction of Polaris and that my stars are somewhat in focus. By clicking on the preview label, a menu appears with imaging choices. Next step, polar alignment. Let's click on the play button to start the routine. But first, we got to make sure that we're happy with the exposure time. I usually have it set to 2 seconds and then just follow along with the app. The app has plate solved, and now it's asking you to rotate the mount 60 degrees. Hit next, and the app instructs the mount to rotate automatically. Then it'll take another picture and plate solve to determine the error in your alignment. Click Let's Go, and the app directs you as to how to adjust your altitude and azimuth bolts. You want to get this as close to 0 in both directions for better tracking and guiding, but you'll need to decide on your own what is good enough. These fine adjustments can be jumpy when getting close to 0. In this case, I clicked the auto checkbox, so I do not need to continuously click the refresh button to take a new image. I've done everything I've needed to do outside at this point, so now I go into the house, sit with my wife on the couch, and complete the rest of the imaging setup. I go to preview and click the search button. The Plus, like the Pro, will pull up the night's best target. Typically, I've already got a target in mind, and I'll search by its catalog number. Tonight, it was the Sol Nebula, IC 1848. This is another area that the app functionality can improve by allowing a search by object name. That being said, a quick search on the internet will get you the catalog number. Some important information is given in this screen. It shows the altitude path the object will follow. It'll also show when it crosses the meridian, and finally the direction the object is currently pointed. This information is very useful to help on nights where you plan to image multiple targets. Highlight the target simply by clicking it and then press the Go To. This is a feature I really appreciate as it automatically slews to the target and plate solves that it's in the center of your image. At this point, I'd like to get focus dialed in and perform a guide calibration routine. I started by clicking the focuser icon on the left and then the play button. Now I click the guide icon and then the graph itself to get to the guide screen. Click on the circular arrows to start the guide camera to loop image captures. When stars appear, click on the target icon to initiate multi-star guiding and the calibration routine. While the calibration routine is running, you can go plan your imaging session by returning to the image preview screen. You can do this by clicking on the minimize icon. You know when you have a successful calibration when the guide graph appears and the RA deck lines converge around 0. You can adjust the RA deck aggressiveness in this area by clicking the plus minus buttons, but I'll leave that at default for now. So onto the preview screen, you'll have the ability to plate solve an image by clicking the plate solve icon. I do this at the start of every night to sync the mount. Always go to the telescope settings and double check the mount is tracking, and I've set it to track the stars by selecting side reel. At this point, I need to decide what type of imaging method I want to use: auto run, plan, live, or video. I've played with each and I've found I use plan for my imaging, auto run for calibration frames, live when I want to stack images during outreach events, and video for planetary and lunar. Tonight we'll explore the plan feature. So I select plan and then click on the icon with 3 lines. It takes me to the add a target area, and I click on the big plus sign. At this point, I select my target and click the check mark to finalize. You can click on details to add to your image sequencing plan, select image type, exposure time in seconds, number of images to capture, and binning settings. I can now click on pluses to add additional sequences to the target. Tonight I'll keep it simple with 100 images at 5 minutes long each. Here you'll notice I've got some type of importing error. I was trying to change the RA and deck to frame the image to exactly what I wanted, but I wasn't able to do so without going out of the plan itself and then going back in. I'm not sure if this is by design or if it is a bug that needs to be fixed. You can add additional targets by clicking the plus button, but as you can see, this imaging plan was going to take me well past nautical dark as it was set to end at 5:52 a.m. So there was no point of adding additional targets. Now you click the circular button to start the plan, and it will give you the options that you can toggle on and off to your liking. Then click Start to run the plan. You will note everything is automated at this point. It plate solve, guides, autofocuses as per my previous settings. This is my favorite functionality, to which I click the Start button and everything just works and is stable. I don't need to worry about the imaging session, and I can go to bed if I choose to. While we're waiting for the first sub, let me show you some additional functionality within the app. You can turn on and off the histogram display and the guide graph displays simply by clicking the icons on the left. Under Tools, you can measure the star size to check focus. You can identify objects in your image, and finally you can confirm that your image is centered, which I'll demonstrate later. Just as I started my plan, some wisps of cloud started to roll through my field of view and impacted my guiding and ultimately the first few images. But this is life as an astrophotographer. We're at the whim of Mother Nature. I returned a few times to the guide screen to watch the clouds scroll past my image train. So what are my conclusions about the ASIair PLUS? Is it still as easy as 1, 2, 3 as ZWO states? The Plus still delivers on the promise of making our hobby easier for the amateur astrophotographer. The layout is intuitive and easy to get a handle on. It's still tied to the ZWO ecosystem, which I think aids ZWO in delivering on that promise. That said, it also means as you grow and add to your equipment, you will need to stay with ZWO products, exceptions being the mounts and certain DSLRs. I hope that ZWO continues to add more features that the astrophotographers start to appreciate when they develop over time. Now, is it worth it? Well, this depends. If you don't already have a Pro already and you plan to automate your imaging nights, then yes, this is a good step as long as you plan to stay within the ZWO ecosystem. If you have a Pro and you've been able to adequately address the Wi-Fi limitations, then you probably will not see enough differences to make it worthwhile to upgrade. That said, you may want to monitor firmware updates, as eventually the limitations of the Pro internal processors may not be able to handle the future improvements as they become more complex and hardware intensive. Am I happy I upgraded? I definitely appreciate the improved Wi-Fi capabilities, the increased upload speeds, and finally the noticeable improved performance in some of the processes. And I know my wife is happier that I'm not standing 5 feet from the exterior wall to download images from time to time. Now instead, we can sit together and I can monitor things anywhere in the house while spending time with her also. And we know what that means. Happy wife means happy life. It also seems like ZWO has some future plans for the Plus, so I'm excited to see where they develop this in the future. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Click the notification button to be notified of future uploads. And now onto the Sol Nebula. This is a single 5-minute exposure and it should appear, hopefully, with the clouds not swamping the image. Until next time, keep looking up and clear skies.